There are 6 players that they've all selected, so let's start with that. Not necessarily in the same formation, but 2 in the back 4. Stones and Shaw, Bellingham and Rice in midfield, Foden and Kane make all the starting lineups. Gary, just on John Stones, why?
He's just the best centre-back that we've got. He's the consistent one, the one that's, I think, should definitely be there. Good on the ball, been a big part of Gareth's squad over the last 3 or 4 years, and he's no-brainer.
Same with Bellingham?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you actually go through the England team now, I think of Kane and Foden, who's never really shown his Man City form in an English shirt, but you think of who have we got as world class? And I think Kane and Foden could go into that category, and I think Bellingham is almost just waiting to take that step, and maybe we'll be saying that after the World Cup.
Is he perhaps the player we're most excited about in terms of this World Cup?
Well, I am. I'm from Birmingham, so we produced him. So, yeah, absolutely, he can play. I just hope he doesn't sit. I hope we let him go a little bit more. I don't think we will let him go. I think we'll keep him deep and protecting the back line. But I really want him to go and express himself. I think he got a brilliant assist at the weekend. The kid's talented. He's not a kid. He's so far superior than what his age is.
So mature, isn't he?
He is, and
so mature.
even at 16, and he was just so much better than everyone else.
Let's have a look at what they're like as managers then. Here's Jamie Redknapp's team first.
Okay.
We'll pick the bones out of this, Jamie. And I would say as well that everybody else has gone with Jordan Pickford in goal, but you haven't. You've opted for Nick Pope,
I'm picking this team the first day of the tournament. I just prefer Pope, Ramsdale to Pickford. That's just how I would do it. I look at a back 4. I want to be quite attacking. We haven't really got players in form. Harry Maguire's not had enough football for me. Yes, Eric Dyer's not in the best of form himself, but that's the sort of best back 4 I could think of right now. Trent is obviously one where you could have been with Trippier either way. But the one thing I've got in that system, I would have it more with Bellingham and Rice as a 2, and Phil Foden for me just in behind Harry Kane, where we haven't ever played him before, but that's where he wants to play.
In behind or from the left?
No, it just is in a midfield 3. So you could even play a 1 and a 2. So you could play a Rice, Bellingham, and Foden. And I would want Phil Foden getting on that ball, getting on the half turn. He doesn't get that opportunity in place for Man City because they've got Bernardo Silva, because they've got Kevin De Bruyne. But I think for us, we don't possess enough players like that. Mason Mount, obviously, he'll be disappointed not to maybe get in that 11 because of what he does. But I just feel Phil Foden on the half turn can just run with the ball, has got more end product, I think, right now, and that's where I would play him. And I remember last year when the Euros, or 2 years ago when the Euros were on, they said, you spoke about each player, where do they want to play? And he said midfield. So he doesn't see himself as a wide left or a wide right player. Grealish is obviously a bold one, but I just always feel that Grealish is the one player that looks for Harry Kane every time he gets it. Saka's bang in form, so I feel that he has to play as well. Rashford is going to be a wild card that's going to come on 10, 20 minutes into the game. But that's how I would have Foden in behind Harry Kane.
Does anybody else support the theory of Foden in midfield now? And why not?
I've not got him in midfield. I got him up front I think I've got him on the right.
Yeah, I think eventually, when he first came in the City team, we all just felt he was going to step into David Silva's shoes, and he actually did play sort of slightly deeper in that midfield 3. But he's just ended up in a wide position, hasn't he? And Jamie's talking about playing number 10. Obviously, City don't really play that type of system, but no, I mean, he has to be in the team. He did start as part of the front 3, I think, at the first game of the Euros, and he didn't do well enough. And I think eventually Saka came into the team and took his place. He didn't play well enough, and he hasn't played well enough in an England shirt. But we are talking about, when you're seeing for City, the best sort of talent, English talent, certainly right now.
Is that why he has to play, Jamie?
He has to play, but for me, I don't think putting him in this sort of central midfield 3, I think for me he's still part of the front 3. He's got blister in place. Sometimes you worry about putting a midfield player as part of the front 3 because you think he's always going to come to feet to the ball, midfield players normally, but he's got blister and pace. So you want someone running in behind Harry Kane. So I've got him as part of my front 3.
And that's why I'm not playing him up there, because of the Euros, because we don't get him on the ball enough. I want to see someone like him on the ball, coming into pockets, picking it up, because I look at it as a midfield player. How would I like it if Phil Foden was picking the ball up, because he's so elusive, he'd be hard to play against. In a midfield area, when it's so congested, I think he could find that space. But that's the team I've gone for.
All right, Karen, you're up next. And you have opted for an interesting choice at centre-back. It's a partnership we've seen certainly a lot with England before. Stones alongside Harry Maguire, as we saw again here today. Left out for Victor Lindelof. So he goes into the tournament with very little football. Tell us your thinking.
To be honest, I wasn't confident with anyone I put there, if I'm being brutally honest.
You mean in the back four or just at centre-back?
In that centre-back position, but I went with Maguire because I said earlier about experience in tournament football and the opening game, and also his relationship with Pickford and with John Stones. At the Euros, I stood behind every game. I was behind the goal for England, so I watched how they communicated, how they worked. He hasn't been great. We can't hide that, but I would back him. I'd go, come in, have your vent. We're here. We're going to go with you. And what I would say is not much preparation time. So he's got to pick. I think Gareth's got to pick the team that, or what I would do as well is they've played together a lot, because there's no time. Usually you've had 2 or 3 weeks to bring everybody in, and I don't think he has. And I think you've just got to back him, support him, and I think England fans have to as well. And I expect him to play. I think Man United bought him as well for his heading ability. You know, I think 30% of goals are set pieces, so he's very good in the air, and I'd have to back him on that as well.
He makes your team as well?
Yeah, and to be honest, since England's last games where it went poorly for him, I think I said consistently for a few weeks after, I'm not sure you can play him in the World Cup. But the closer it's got to it, the more I'm looking at other centre-back options, and I'm not sure you can play them either. And I think Karen makes a great point in that. The relationship you mentioned with John Stones and Pickford, also with Luke Shaw, he's a teammate. That come into my mind. The fact it was Iran first game as well, in that I think they're going to be really deep, really defensive, and maybe try and get the odd counter-attack. I'm just thinking from Gareth Southgate's point of view, will he be thinking, I can get Harry Maguire a game here, almost 90 minutes, and you can't use a World Cup as almost warm-up games, but I look at that game and think, another 90 minutes of fitness where he may not get extended as much as he would do later on, because if every centre-back in this country is playing at their best, what we've seen them all play for, Harry Maguire's the best. That might be going back too easy. He may never get back there ever again. But I don't think we couldn't do what we did in other tournaments with other centre-backs going in there. So I'd just be thinking, could I get him up to speed by the time we got to the knockout stages?
You've picked 3 centre-backs, but none of them are Harry Maguire.
No.
Why?
I just felt his form that he's been in and not playing, the confidence, I just felt it was too much. I've gone for a back 3 because I think that no centre-back pairing, I think you've mentioned it, you've both got massive doubts about who you play alongside John Stones. I don't see a centre-back pair there at all. I think if you had the fact that you haven't got a midfield player with Rice that holds, you've got Bellingham, I think will just depart and vacate that central midfield player. You cannot just leave Declan Rice with either Dyer and Stones or Maguire and Stones. Even Iran, USA and Wales will get through us. So I think you have to play a back 3. There's also another reason why I think he'll play a back 3 is that I think he would do it in one of the second round or quarter-final games. He's only got 5 days before the tournament. He hasn't got time to be able to switch formations. He has to go with the formation he's going to stick with. That means he might change players. He might bring Trippier in for Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, in one of the more difficult games. But you can't be flipping systems about and formations about too much.
He did it in the Euros.
He had 3 weeks. He had 3 weeks to prepare for the Euros. He's had 4 days to prepare for this tournament.
That same group of players have been together for a long time. They have flipped in a tournament.
Look, they played a back 3 in the last 2 matches in March. They've not played a back 4 for 8 months now. He would have used the same system, I think, in March that he's going to play in the tournament. He's only got 4 days before this tournament to train. He has to use these first 3 games as being the ones that basically go for the second round.
We see his team. I'm excited to see the team.
Well,
no, it's the formation's different. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that's the crucial thing. But in terms of, you don't think they have the capability to switch formation, do you? Or do you?
Of course, I think that's one of the great strengths of this squad of players in Gareth Southgate. The team I'm picking, I'm not saying that's the team. I'm talking about Iran, the opposition that we're playing against. A team are going to be really deep. You know, you're going to have to try and find ways. It may not be easy. It may be a 1-0 victory.
So you're thinking horses for courses?
No, what I'm saying, as soon as England get to the next stage, I'd be thinking, and also don't forget, Kyle Walker's not 100% fit.
Yeah.
As soon as Kyle Walker gets up to speed and Liverpool and England got into the knockout stage, I'd have no problem with Kyle Walker coming as a third centre-back and you're taking an attacking player out. I just think we've got the option, as we've done in the past, and I think it's been a great strength of Gareth Southgate. 3 at the back in the World Cup 4 years ago. The Euros was a back 4, changed to a back 3 against Germany and in the final. Italy. And I think he's got the option again.
What's your take on this?
I agree. I was just going to say, against the top teams, Italy and Germany, he went to a 5, and I completely agree about Walker. If the team that we've picked is about beating a lower block, the team that will have more possession in, but as it goes on, and we're looking at how quick the wide players of the biggest teams, like your Brazils and those types of teams, who I think will go on and cause us a problem.
But Walker's pace will be vital.
Exactly. So then I think
ready for the end of the
we'll
group stages, hopefully. And will he be a vital component when he is ready? Kyle Walker.
Oh, absolutely. You'd bring him straight in. I'd bring him straight into the right of a back three.
Stick with your back three.
Yeah, 'cause I think one of the best ways to beat a team like Iran, USA and Wales is to stop counter-attack, is to defend well. Honestly, in international football, if you get counter-attacked against, you're going to be in big trouble. I just think with Bellingham moving forward from midfield, which we want him to do, you've got basically just Declan Rice there with potentially Harry Maguire and Stones. They can both get done in those channels against quick players who USA and Wales definitely will have. So from that point of view, I just think having that solid base to be able to make sure you sustain attacks from is critical in the actual games against the weaker teams as much as it is against the stronger teams.
Yeah, I want to see us have a go though, Gary, as well.
So do
I
I.
don't want us to see us playing two defensive midfield players. I mean, let's have.
No, I've got Bellingham in there. I've got Bellingham in there, but I'm saying I think if Bellingham goes forward,
so you're still going to play. So if you're going to play a three, you're going to play a two in there just in front, Rice and Bellingham.
Yeah, but Bellingham goes forward.
I think we should see Gary's team.
I want to see his team.
Let's have a look.
See how he's setting up.
Let's have a look. With the three at the back, Gary.
You
What
can
were
move
saying?
Alexander Arnold and Shaw forward from that if you want to make it 3-4-3, which is what I wanted.
See, we've often discussed, Gary, you and I, where midfield, I think, that's why I think the 4-3-3 gets that extra body in there. Whereas if the team does play a 4-3-3, you are going to get outnumbered, and it's hard for Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice to get close to people, so they've always got that spare man. So Jude, in that system, is still going to have to sit it. Did you not agree, Gary?
No, I mean, personally, I think we will dominate the ball again in the first three matches. I think when Bellingham goes forward, one of those centre-backs steps into midfield alongside Rice and it becomes a 2 and a 2. I think that's how I would see it, that back three still provides the strength for one of them to step in alongside Rice.
Yeah, against Iran, though, when you've got three defenders, like, you know...
Well, if you're worried about stopping the counter-attack, doesn't matter what system you play, you're talking about having a 2 and a 2, you can still do that with a 4-3-3. You know, maybe ask one of your fullbacks to tuck in, or you tell one of your midfield players to hold. But this idea, I mean, you've mentioned it, Jamie, that we always talk about Gareth Southgate, we talk about him, when we talk about him in a negative terms, we talk about him being pragmatic, being negative in his team. We wanted to see England get on the ball, open the game, or play fantastic football. History tells you don't win tournaments playing like that.
He's not going to do that.
It doesn't happen. No. Look how England have got there. Now, on keeping clean sheets. That's what England have done in 2 successful tournaments. And a lot of teams who've won tournaments, even your Spain and even France who won the last World Cup, it wasn't with great football.
So Spain didn't play great football?
No, but they got a lot of clean sheets and won a lot of games 1-0.
Spain never conceded a goal, I think it was from 2000.
Because no one could get the ball off them, that's why.
Spain never conceded a goal, I think, in knockout games for about 3 tournaments for 6 years. And the fact of the matter is, Gareth analysed, I think, to be fair, knockout football and understands English football and World Cup football and knockout football better than any other England manager that I've seen. He knows you've got to stop goals going. So I think he'll build it from that defensive base, knowing his players up front will get him a goal.
You can change as well when you've got so many. You can change half your team with subs as well, so you can build your foundations and then go. Actually, what does this game need? I can bring on Grealish, Saka, Rashford, whoever it might be. So that's why I think you'll go with the experience, defend, and then go actually turn to my bench and pluck people off, and then go. That's how we win a game.
Just clarify your stance right now on Trent Alexander-Arnold. Last week, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you said that Gareth Southgate wouldn't trust him
in a knockout game.
In big games.
In a knockout game.
In knockout games.
I don't think he'll play in a knockout game.
So where are you on Trent Alexander-Arnold? If you're the England manager, you're starting him through this tournament.
I think that, to be fair, on that right-hand side, Trippier and Walker will come in for White and Trent Alexander-Arnold as they get fit or as the teams change that they play against.
But you said didn't want to chop and change?
No, don't chop and change the system. Sorry, the players can change within the system, but I don't think he'll want to play 2. He's only got 4 days. This is unique. No international manager has ever had 4 days going into a tournament. They've had 4 weeks to go into a tournament to prepare really well. Gareth's got to go in there with what he's done in the March friendlies and what he's already built in the players' minds, which is 3 at the back he's done in the last 2 friendlies. Why would he play in those 2 games? That's why I'm going with 3 at the back. I'm going off what Gareth's done in the last 2. I'd be amazed if he then switched it all of a sudden from the last 2 games to all of a sudden 4. He hasn't got a pair he can trust at the back. Which centre-back pair would you put there together and say, I trust them? None of them. None of them are good enough, unfortunately.
It's been hard, isn't it? That's been the toughest thing for all of us, I think, when you try to get your back.
That's why I've gone with 3.
It's been really hard.
You said it took you 2 days.
I took no back coming here. No, I think with Trent as a right wing-back, would you not, because it's not a system he plays for his club, would you be worried about that as well?
Look, I don't think he's going to play him as a right-back, to be honest with you, for England. I think he's going to play him as a right wing-back. It's not ideal, to be honest with you, the defensive situation that we've got. I actually even like the idea of Shaw playing, to be honest with you, as a left centre-back of a 3. But the problem is, Chilwell's not there, so you can't really play anybody else as a left wing. You could play Saka maybe, but it's a bit too weird. So I just think at the moment he'll just go with the 3 because I think that's how he'll see the tournament developing.
Let's have a look at Jamie's team then to round things off. Any final questions on this? I'm particularly interested in the front line as well. We've talked around the back. You've managed to find a place. Would you say that's a sort of an orthodox 3 in midfield with Mason Mount in there, Jamie, or is he going to play in front of Bellingham and Rice?
No. Because I do agree with that fact. Once you have a number 10, they start floating around. There's a lot of space in midfield. It'd be almost like organising like Bellingham's to the right, Mount's to the left. I think you've got good players on the ball considering the opposition were playing in the first game. But certainly people question a lot of the time Mason Mount. Maybe because he's not as eye-catching as certain other players. But every manager picks him. Whether it's at Chelsea, whether that's at England, because he's a clever footballer who understands the other side of the game as well. I think he can do a job in that position, work back and make sure Liverpool... I've said that twice. England aren't counter-attacked on through the centre of the pitch.
There's also an interesting point in your forward line as well, because you've gone for Bukayo Saka, a player that Gareth Southgate clearly likes, and he's having a fabulous season with Arsenal as well. But you went with Raheem Sterling. Mm-hmm. You were Sterling as well. So why you were Saka as well?
Yeah.
So why Saka, not Sterling?
I just think I love Raheem Sterling. I think he was England's best player in the Euros. He was absolutely out of this world. And I just think this season his form has not been great. I'm also in an England shirt of late. And I just think Saka's playing that well on that position. And it wasn't one or the other, because I always prefer Raheem on the left, if I'm being totally honest. So it wasn't that Raheem or Saka. It was always going to be Saka on that right side, and it'd come down to Raheem or Phil Foden. And I just think the actual ability of Phil Foden, how he's played as well since that European Championship, mainly for his club, I just thought I'd start with him.
I think the one thing we've all come up with here is that we've got a Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice that's the pair.
Midfield axis.
Midfield axis, and I think we've got a generational player in Jude Bellingham that doesn't come along very often. I play with a lot of great midfield players like Scholes and Gascoigne. And I think we've got to be very careful with someone like him because he needs to play. We need to get him on the ball. I think we give him too much defensive restrictions. I want to see an England team that teams are scared of playing against. Not that we're going to sit back and show too much respect. I look at that group with the players that we've got. We should take care of it by being attacking, by being on the front foot, and that's why I like Bellingham and players like that can just go and control games and do what he's doing in the Bundesliga right now.
What Jamie says there about a generational talent, I think Foden is that. I think that Bellingham is that. And to be fair, I know we talk about him a lot. Trent Alexander-Arnold is that really. If you look at what he is in his position, there's nothing like him in terms of his delivery. Playing him as a right wing-back gives an opportunity to get him into the team. You could never play him as a right-back, I don't think, in a knockout game for England. But you may think that if he starts that tournament well and he starts putting those crosses in from that right wing-back position, he could then stay in the team. Because if you've got Walker or White behind him in that channel, they do really comfortably get out there well.
I know you say that, but I know you mentioned it last week, but with Trent, he's won Champions League finals. He's played in such big games.
Jamie, you've not picked him against Iran in the first game, or
no, I know, but I'm just saying. But you're saying he can't.
I'm the one that's picked him.
Yeah, but as a wing back, but then you said you can't play him in a big game.
But you've not picked him in the game. So many. But if you can,
I'm not saying that. The question is why can't he play as a right back?
No, but all three of them haven't picked him against Iran. So I don't think I should be questioned about not playing him against the knockout game.
But it's more that you're saying he can't in a big. But he's played in so many big games. That young man.
Jamie, I watch. I'm obsessed with watching fullbacks. So for me, if Reece James was fit, he plays. Reece James, for me, plays, I think, as right wing-back at this moment in time. I think he's outstanding because I think he has both assets to his game. The way England and Gareth thinks and the way we play, we're not going to dominate possession that much, I think, against the top teams. We do build from a defensive base, and I think Trent is going to have to defend more than he would do for Liverpool. And I just think, look, these three haven't picked him in their game against Iran. So if they can't pick him against Iran, they're certainly going to pick him against Germany or France in a quarter-final.
Karen, history tells us that what you start with can change very much up to the final.
Yeah.
Might we see that again?
Yeah, 100%, but just going off your one, I think, are you referring to that if he comes up against a top winger in that semi-final, that final, that's where he will struggle?
I think even in second round game, I just think he's not necessarily against a winger. I actually think he'd be better if he was against a winger. I think he has his problem potentially when the ball's in the centre or the other side of the pitch.
Just checking his shoulders.
And he's not quite got his distances or his sort of concentration right, or he gets caught forward. So, I mean, look, I think that if you were going to play him, you'd play him against Iran, US and Wales, And then you might think about, but I think starting him in that back five gives him an opportunity to stay in, because I think he's a generational talent with Foden and Bellingham. The three of them are absolutely out of this world, talent-wise. They've got to be given a chance, I think, in this
I want
tournament.
to put you all on the spot quickly.
Let me just ask, what you're talking about there, you said about chopping and changing. I actually think it's more of a problem to be chopping and changing actually personnel, because it's right on us. We've got a week, it's over in a month. So I actually think the system's not too big a problem. But when you're talking about playing Trent and then maybe going to Kyle Walker or Trippier at different times, I think that's more of a problem. You've got to sort of get
Walker
your
plays
players
right
who are playing.
centre-back.
OK, he may be the one who comes in. The thing you're talking about Trent is that, and I understand what you're saying, a generational talent. Trent's unique, we've said this so often, but for Liverpool, he's when we talk about a luxury player, we normally associate it being a winger or a number 10. He wasn't come through as a fullback, he was a midfield player. He's gone to right fullback for Liverpool, and almost a luxury in that. Liverpool are that good a team. You see the absolute best of them in terms of getting on the ball, crossing positions, getting the ball in midfield, playing people through. He does less defending. So I'm with Gary on that, in that England aren't as good as Liverpool. So they will do more defending. So you'll see less of Trent going forward and more of defending, which is obviously where he has problems at times.
All right, let's wrap up the England squad conversation and the team selection with a wild card from all of you who might not make your starting 11 that, or has done that could be the star of the tournament. Maybe come in from the cold a little bit.
Rashford.
Marcus Rashford in the form he's in.
I was actually thinking the same, him and Grealish, but Rashford just for his counter-attack. I think sometimes we won't have the ball against when we go into the latter part. Him on the break will be really good. And Grealish, just with his relationship with Shaw in the Euros, and I think he works really well with Harry Kane. He always tries to find him, links well with him. But I think Shaw as well, he can overlap him, and we saw that in the Euros.
He won't start
Grealish
at all. There's no chance he's going to start the game. I just think these are sort of players that can come and make a difference as well, and he did that, like you said, in the Euros. So Grealish, Rashford, two players with pace that are just comfortable. Why I like Grealish is he always wants the ball. He'll take the ball in every single situation, win you free kicks, and I just think you need people like that playing for your country.
Jamie?
I was going to mention Rashford, but I'd also say Maddison, the obvious one everyone's been talking about. But
there was a clamour from everyone to get him in the squad.
To get him in the squad, but I
him.
don't think anyone really believes he'll play that much. It was just how can you not pick this lad who's playing so well when you've got 26 picks? So he had to be in it. But I don't think really anyone envisages him making a big impact on the tournament. And I just think you can think of sort of Bellingham's role, Foden as part of the front three, maybe Mason Mount. I think he's got the arrogance in a footballing sense and in a good way to actually just come on in an international game, a knockout game, and say, give me the ball and actually do something. I go with Maddison.